services, new insurance options. If you watch the local news and see a weathercaster, or if you check your smartphone and you see the weather, you're using open government data. We know that opening up data pays off. So today I want to touch on 3 points. One, the tremendous work that has already been accomplished and how this is creating opportunities for businesses and economic growth. 2, early implementation of the Open Data Executive Order and how these efforts are proceeding. And 3, how we are working to build a 21st century government that is more effective, more efficient, and more accountable. I know that's the focus of today's conference. It's an area where we've made great progress, and I'm excited to hear about some of the conversations today. So over the past few years, the administration has launched a series of open data initiatives, which for the first time in history have released troves of data that were previously hard to access in areas such as health, energy, education, public safety, global development, and finance. And we've opened up huge amounts of government data to the American people and put it on the internet for free, while continuing to protect privacy, business proprietary interests, and security. And through the data.gov platform, which launched in 2009, the public can access government data sets about a wide array of topics, from what different hospitals charge for different procedures, to credit card complaints, to weather and climate measurements. And more recently, the administration has published additional data sets in ways that make it easy for software developers to use, using application programming interfaces, or APIs. And these APIs, which encompass data sets as varied as home and business energy trends to real-time earthquake notifications around the world, can be used by private sector developers to create new apps, new services, and even new companies in real time. And in fact, today you can access the current weather on Mars transmitted from the Curiosity rover. To facilitate the creation of new and useful digital tools, each agency recently released its own developer-centric pages, and data.gov launched a government-wide API directory to make these resources easier to find and use. And what we're seeing is that entrepreneurs and business owners are now using those data to create jobs and solve problems that government can't solve by itself or do as efficiently. Businesses and entrepreneurs and others can utilize freely available government data to build new features, new apps, new services, new financial products, and entire new companies. So let me give you a few examples here. A company called OPower uses open government data on general energy trends to help families save more than $300 million on their energy bills. Another company called iTriage, founded by 2 emergency room doctors in Denver, Colorado, uses freely downloadable data about healthcare providers from the Department of Health and Human Services to help more than 9 million people find the closest doctors and hospitals that meet their needs. Another company called Climate Corporation provides software and services to help farmers plan, manage, and protect their crops. The company offers field-level tracking tools, customized crop insights, and weather-based insurance policies covering crop losses. The apps and the financial products that Climate Corporation offers are built using a number of open government a number of open federal government data sets, including weather, history, and forecasts from the National Weather Service, terrain maps and soil data from U.S. Geological Survey, crop yields from the USDA, and weather and earth observation from NASA. The company has raised over $100 million in venture financing, hired over 150 employees, and are helping farmers in tangible ways today. Another example would be a company called BillGuard, which leverages the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's new credit card complaint database to help consumers find deceptive, erroneous, and fraudulent charges on their credit and debit cards. This startup has raised $13 million in venture financing and has found $50 million worth of gray charges on their customers' bills. But the use of open government data isn't limited to startups. The president recently participated in a live online event moderated by the CEO of Zillow, a company that went public in 2011. Zillow helps families make informed decisions about buying a home and where to raise a family, and Zillow is powered in part by open government data, including freely available data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and the Census Bureau. In fact, there's a whole class of companies, real estate companies, such as Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, Estately, Redfin, and others that help people look for the right homes for their families. And this entire sector is a great example of what happens when private sector entrepreneurs use open government data in creative and novel ways. It's the type of innovation that helps Americans and creates whole new companies and industries. And the list goes on and on and on. Collectively, these companies have hired thousands of people, and they're still hiring. Millions of people have used these products and services, powered in part by open and machine-readable government data. And we're continuing to build on these efforts. On May 9th of this year, during a trip to Austin, Texas, President Obama met with a company called StormPulse that uses freely available government weather data to help businesses protect themselves and their assets from potentially hazardous weather. StormPulse CEO Matt Wensing has said that, quote, easier access to government data means growing companies like ours can offer significant value to citizens and enterprises. That same day, the President issued an executive order and launched the administration's new open data policy, taking concrete steps to make government data more accessible, more machine readable, and more useful for the public, for entrepreneurs, to ignite economic growth and innovation. And under the terms of the executive order and the new open data policy, all newly generated government data will be required to be made available in open, machine-readable formats, greatly enhancing their accessibility and usefulness, while continuing to ensure privacy and security. The administration's open data policy includes financial data, regulatory data, performance data, program data, scientific data, and much more. The open data policy requires 5 things from agencies. So 1, requires agencies to create an enterprise data inventory. Agencies are required to create an inventory of their data assets across the entire department, just the same way that they're required to inventory computers or desk chairs. 2, it requires agencies to publish a public data listing. So agencies are required to publish on their agency.gov/data pages a public data listing of the data assets that are public and those that could be made public. Let me repeat that. Agencies are required to publish on their agency.gov/data pages a public data listing of data assets that are public and those that could be made public. 3, agencies are required to set up feedback mechanisms to engage the public, to engage all of you about where they should spend their scarce time and resources about opening up data assets. 4, agencies are required to have processes to document if data sets can't be released. And 5, agencies are required to have points of contact for each publicly listed data set. And so to complement these policies and facilitate implementation, we launched Project Open Data. I'd encourage you all to Google it and check it out. It's an online public repository intended to foster collaboration and promote the continual improvement of open data policy. The project is published on GitHub, a popular platform for sharing not only software but also documents. Anyone can contribute ideas, tools, or even simple grammatical edits. So I encourage you to all check it out. Additionally, data.gov recently transitioned its central catalog to a more open source platform, enabling the automated aggregation from the agencies. And I think that's a big shift, is that we're moving to a more federated approach. And I think that will be beneficial so that we'll all be able to find more data sets, and that third parties will be able to create great data directories as well. So later this year, data.gov will include data listings from every federal agency, making it easier for entrepreneurs and innovators and the general public to locate, understand, and reuse open government data. So 2 weeks ago, we took this a step further and we released additional implementation guidance to agencies about how to inventory and publish data sets. We released new FAQs about how open data requirements apply to federal acquisition and grant processes. And we also released a framework for creating measurable goals that agencies can use to track progress. All of this is openly available on the Project Open Data website, where additional case studies and free software tools for the agencies are also available. So these efforts continue to lead to innovations in government, and they're helping government to be more efficient, effective, data-driven, and transparent. It's another example of our commitment to use technology to make government better, smarter, and faster, and to drive increased transparency. So one example is what the EPA has been doing. They recently launched their Next Generation Compliance Initiative, designed to reduce costs, save time in reporting, and improve compliance and the accuracy of monitoring and reporting. So as part of this, EPA is deploying advanced monitoring technologies to make it easier to find pollution problems reliably. So these new technologies can make it easier for companies to monitor performance, and they can find and fix problems, often saving money in the process. So in Boston's Charles River, for example, EPA is using solar-powered continuous monitoring devices that will soon be able to upload results directly to agency computers. And more of these types of programs are on the horizon. The EPA also recently proposed a rule to convert the Clean Water Act reporting to electronic data reporting. So from shifting from paper to electronic, we're going to collectively save $29 million each year on transaction costs, improve results, and expand transparency so that anyone can access data on pollution, and whether that's in the federal sphere or in the local sphere. I think that's really exciting. Recently, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released a data set for the first time showing what hospitals charge for inpatient services associated with the 100 most common kinds of hospital stays. And the data have revealed huge variations in hospital charges across the country and even within metro areas. So in Birmingham, Alabama, for example, the average hospital charge for hip and knee replacement varies from $23,000 at one hospital to $141,000 at another in the same metro area. The demand for this kind of information is real. Within 24 hours of us putting this hospital charge information online, it was downloaded over 100,000 times. Making data available also means improving services for the public. When HHS makes a listing of healthcare providers available online, or the VA posts a listing of all regional benefits offices, anyone building a geolocated mobile app can make this information available to their users. We're also working with major search engines to use open data to make results even more useful, whether by providing information when you type in a prescription drug into a search box, or pointing you to the nearest government offices to apply for a particular benefit. Data is an important, valuable national asset, and it should be open and available to the public, to entrepreneurs, to scientists, and to others, instead of being trapped in government systems. Taxpayers paid for this vast trove of government data, and where possible, it should be accessible to everybody. So next, on the next panel, I know you'll hear from some of my colleagues at other federal agencies, and I hope they'll expand on how we're using open data to improve government management, which is one of the subjects of this conference, and offer some additional examples. We're going to work to further the President's vision for building a better, smarter, faster government over the course of his second term. And we encourage all of you to participate with us, to collaborate with us. We can't wait to see the new products, the new services, and the companies that get created by American entrepreneurs as they innovate using open government data as fuel. We look forward to continued progress. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nick. And I think some of those examples, like that example from Birmingham, is the exact kind of scenario. I think we could all imagine that there's always fluctuations in price depending on the specific circumstances, but to have a 7 times difference in one metro market for the same procedure, there's obviously some inefficiencies that we can over time address. So today, the first question, it revolves around the fact, today we've got 7 topics we'll be discussing. And in case the audience isn't aware, they're spending, performance, financial regulation, general regulation, tax, legislative, and judicial. So the first really hard question is, can you, in 15 seconds or less, while blindfolded and hopping on one foot, repeat those back to me?
No.
Okay, then we'll move on to the second difficult question. And that really wasn't a question, folks. I promise you, I didn't expect that. But given those topics, in your opinion, which area of government data do you think perhaps offers the best business opportunities? And are there any of these 7 areas that you think may be of more interest to startups and venture capitalists as that data becomes broadly available?
Well, Bill, we've organized the open data efforts to date really around industries or thematic areas. So health, energy, education, public safety, global development, finance. And we find that a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are looking to disrupt industries, tend to be focused on healthcare, for example, right? So they're thinking about the transformations in healthcare and how to provide better healthcare, how to kind of think about mobile in terms of healthcare and so forth. And so in those particular areas, we've seen just an explosion of companies and interest in data-driven transformation. But those functional areas are also really interesting. And if I had to kind of pick one, or let me pick two. Okay. So I think the financial and performance areas is a really set of interesting areas. We've made some great progress, and we'll continue to make progress in those areas. And then the regulatory piece, I think, is also really interesting. A lot of regulations are done on paper or in PDFs, and then you have a lot of lawyers interpreting rules. And so we have a tremendous opportunity, and Hudson alluded to this, we have a tremendous opportunity for entrepreneurs to help disrupt these industries and make it lower the cost of compliance for companies, and software can kind of disrupt lawyers, so to speak. So I think the regulatory piece, both in making the rules more machine readable and software, and then also the opportunity to bring greater market transparency from open data. So,
excellent. And then, one of the big themes of your talk, obviously, was some of the administration's open data initiatives that you already have currently underway. But I know you personally, of course, look at this as a longer-term play. It's not just about what you might do in these remaining 3 years, but beyond that. So as you think about the state of open government data, what do you think it may look like in 5 to 10 years, even beyond this administration?
Yeah, that's a great question. So near term, there's a lot of great work, and we'll see a lot of great things. The policy, though, is pretty clear that this is about a mind shift and a change in strategic approach. And so it really is about managing information as a strategic asset through the life cycle of information. And so I think we'll see agencies not just think about open and machine readability and interoperability at point of data dissemination, but really think about it through the life cycle throughout the information life cycle, and be able to manage information assets strategically, and be able to use and reuse them both in the management of government, as well as this opportunity to spur new companies. And so if I look out 5 to 10 years, I think not only will we see new companies being created, we'll see whole new industries being created.
Interesting. And you mentioned something that I think is an intriguing side effect here. We often think about using this data for government to improve itself and to save money, stop fraud, and so forth. But there is that other angle of possibly generating new business opportunities. So as we move towards this open data, I know you've mentioned a few, but maybe just to reinforce, what are some of the specific areas you think that companies might want to be aware of with this data, and what are some of the opportunities that the business community should know about as we move down this path? Yeah,
and I think these are a set of resources that the business community are increasingly going to have to know about and leverage in creative ways. And I think that's what's really important here is that it's about the use of data. Data by itself, you can't pour it on a wound. It doesn't make an accident scene more safe. It doesn't make a home more energy efficient. Data by itself needs to be used. You need to have insights. You need to have software and people using that data in creative ways. And so I think businesses are increasingly going to have to be aware of the vast trove of data assets that the federal government has and is making available. And at the same time, it's about the creative mashup of them. And I think that's what's really exciting is that the private sector can do more with these data sets and mash them up in a bunch of really important ways and unexpected ways. And so we're not going to know all of the great ways, whether it's health, energy, education, what have you, all the ways to put these together and deliver kind of compelling products and services to consumers.
Excellent. Well, I don't know about how many of you would fit this profile, but I am a data and numbers geek by profession, so I get very excited hearing about these kind of things, and I can't wait to see it. So thanks very much, Nick, for your time today. I think it was a great start to the show. And Hudson, I think you wanted to come back up and get the next section going.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Nick. Thank you for that keynote. We're going to move a little bit early, ahead of schedule. Conference is ahead of schedule. Please remember that. Hashtag Open Data 2013. And if you are appreciative of a conference that, at least right now, is ahead of hashtag Open Data 2013 schedule, please share that news with your hashtag Open Data 2013 friends. Again, the login for the Wi-Fi, in case some of you came in after I told you that, the login for the Wi-Fi has no spaces. Remember to download our app. It's Data Transparency 2013. You can find it on the App Store. We're going to move a few minutes early into our next panel. And so I'd like to invite Don McCrory, a partner at PwC, to make his way to the stage. I'd like to invite our Panel 1 panelists, if they're in the vicinity, to make their way to the stage. Those of you who are standing in the back, there are seats in the front. The usual master of ceremonies lament. There are seats in the front. Please feel free to move forward, to engage via eye contact with this panel. Squeeze in. We're very grateful to see progress on the open data policy from the White House. And I would just say, as we think about this, what is the role of the industry? What is the role of our coalition in helping make sure the open data policy is fully implemented? One of those is, I think, making sure that those enterprise data inventories that agencies compile are as complete as possible. I used to work for a federal agency. I know there's nobody at the SEC who's going to say, oh, criminy, President Obama has signed an open data policy. We should take all of these forms, all these documents that our lawyers work with, and we should view these as a data compilation, and we should transform them into open data. That shift, that cultural shift from seeing regulations and regulatory filings as the documents our lawyers draft, to seeing them as compilations that should be subject to the open data policy and should be standardized and should turn into numbers and should replace layers of lawyers with lines of code. That's the transformation we're aiming at. Very happy now to invite Don McCrory of PwC to the podium to thank PwC for sponsoring the conference, Panel 1, and the lunch. We appreciate that, and we're looking forward to more interesting views.
Good morning, everyone. PwC is proud to be a sponsor of the Data Transparency Coalition. This is a first conference of its kind that I'm aware of in the DC area that's really focused in the whole idea of open standards and data. And PwC is very interested in the concepts, working with federal government officials and private sector organizations about the transparency of information and moving data forward in our economy and helping the nation as a whole. So innovation is what we're about at PwC. We're very interested in innovation, supporting our government clients in innovation as well as the private sector. So thank you very much, Hudson, for allowing us to sponsor this conference, and we look forward to working with the Data Transparency Coalition now and into the future. So with that, I'd like to at least do a quick bio of our distinguished panelists this morning, and then allow them to talk a little bit about the efforts that they have going on relative to data and information, and then we'll have a Q&A with them to talk about a little bit about what they have going on into the future. So starting with my immediate left is Gene Holm, and Gene is the evangelist of data.gov. So I don't know if we'll have a little prayer session at the end of evangelist, but
they'll believe.
if they'll believe, right at the end. You'll be a believer at the end. So Gene leads the collaboration and builds communities with public educators, developers, and international and state governments in using open government data. Gene is also the chief knowledge architect at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So you are a rocket scientist. Very good. Driving innovation through social media, virtual worlds, gaming, ontologies, and collaborative systems, including award-winning NASA's public portal, nasa.gov. She is a fellow at the United Nations International Academy of Astronomics, a distinguished instructor at UCLA, and is chair of the W3C e-Government Group that has more than 130 publications on innovation, open data, information systems, and knowledge management. To her left is Earl Devaney, and Earl is the former, let's see here, sorry. Earl, you know who you are.
I do.
He is the former head of the Recovery Act and Transparency Board, where he was responsible for the $840 billion of stimulus expenditures, working under the federal agencies, supporting them in creating 2 award-winning websites with innovative geospatial web services for full transparency and implementing an internationally lauded oversight program. Chairman Devaney at the time brought open data to federal stimulus spending by imposing a consistent structured data format across all stimulus grants and contract reports, and by doing that, he ensured data was readily available online. His leadership at the Recovery Board resulted in extraordinarily low levels of fraud while enabling millions of citizens to clearly see how their tax dollars were being spent. And to Earl's left is Joel Gurin, and Joel is the senior advisor of the Governance Lab at the New York University, where he studies and promotes the use of data and collaborative technologies to improve the workings of government. He has a background in government, publishing, and is a nonprofit leadership. He works 15 years at the Consumers Union, a nonprofit publisher of Consumer Reports, where he began as a science editor, soon becoming the editor-director. As an EVP of Consumers Union, he launched and grew Consumer Reports' website, theconsumerreports.org. Under his leadership, it's become the world's largest information-based public paid subscription site, and it now has more than 3 million active users. So very interesting. And then to our last panelist is going to be Secretary Castle. And Undersecretary Castle is responsible for the satellite imaging programs provided by the Department of Interior. She chairs the steering committee of the Federal Geographic Data Committee, which promotes the sharing of geospatial data. And she is responsible for the development of the geospatial platform, which combines map-based data and tools with web technologies to deliver geospatial information in simple, understandable packaging. The geospatial platform offers user-friendly, integrated federal data collections on common geographic maps. So with that, please welcome our panelists today to the program. So what I'll ask each of the panelists to do is, we'll just go down the line, starting with Gene, is to take about 5 minutes to describe what you're doing in data, a little bit of background of what your interest is and some of the things that you're working on currently or have worked on data. Gene, go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank Hudson and the Data Coalition for putting this event together. I just think it's awesome, and I'm really great that it's really great that we're all here together today to share and learn. Data.gov is really about empowering what all of you want to do with data. So it's about empowering the ecosystem, and each of you has a different role to play and a different challenge ahead of you. So we want to be the place that helps you kind of with that heavy lift initially. So we work with 173 different agencies and sub-agencies across the government that are currently publishing open data. We have over 95,000 collections of data, and that represents 400,000 data sets, a lot of it coming from Ann Castle's geospatial information systems. We work with businesses all over. There are data paloozas and data jams that the White House and Nick's group and Todd Park's group help to host, and that a lot of our communities on data.gov also put together. We showcase 350 apps that different businesses have made. A lot of these are mobile apps that you can download to your smartphone, web-based apps, and they vary all over the place. So the citizens can reach these based on the kinds of things that they need. And we have about 20 different communities on data.gov. So we have an energy community that Nick helped to start. We have a consumer smart disclosure community that Joel was involved in leading. Kat Townsend is somewhere here today, and she's been involved in our agriculture community, manufacturing, Business USA, research. The communities are all over the place because our citizens have needs for open data in many places. We also work with developers because, to be honest, the government agencies put out data, citizens want to consume it, or businesses, but somewhere in the middle, there's a difference between an API and somebody actually understanding what that data says, right? And so we use developers in the government, outside, contractors, advocacy groups. And so we provide over 300 APIs from across the government and resources for those developers as well. And it's not just about federal data, although that's what we started with, but we also reach to cities and counties and states here in America, and we have federated those. So cities in California and Philadelphia and New York, we have dozens and dozens of cities all over the country that have brought up open data sites. And so we use some technologies to federate those so you can find crime statistics, hospital information, permitting practices across cities, counties, and states within the country as well. And we work with over 160 regional and international organizations that have put up open data for governments across the world. So there's a lot of things we're doing, and a lot of this stuff can be accessed and found online on data.gov, and also through the W3C e-government interest group, as well as for the developers in the room, Open Data Stack Exchange. So we've just started a new Stack Exchange as well. Nick mentioned Project Open Data, which is on GitHub and available for anybody to help collaboratively crowdsource the new policies out of the White House. It's been a very interesting adventure, having the public kind of co-write those policies with us and getting all those very transparent comments. It's great. It was a little bit breathtaking at first, and now it's kind of like become our modus operandi. So it's a very nice change. And that's been built on the open data policy and the executive order, and really this whole sea change of going to open by default. So what's next on data.gov is actually next.data.gov. So if you go to next.data.gov, you'll see our new interface. So we're evolving that very transparently, so you'll see it as we build it. There's nothing behind the scenes. So hopefully we won't be breaking too much stuff as we develop the new code. And getting all of our community leaders to develop new content and news and a very spiffy new interface. And as Nick mentioned before, we have a new infrastructure with CCAN, which allows a much closer integration with the geospatial information work that Anne and others have been doing. So now you can actually just put in your zip code or draw a little box around your house and find out all the geospatial and other data that is related to your neighborhood. So we really look forward to your comments on Project Open Data or your questions on Open Data Stack Exchange.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very proud to be here today. I'm sort of the one has-been. I am retired and don't have any stories from 2 weeks ago, but I want to talk to you today about 4 years ago when the Recovery Act was passed and how the board and the wonderful staff at the Recovery Board put together data in a way that was standardized and machine readable. Hudson corralled me shortly after I retired, and I was proud to join his board, and I'm very amazed at the amount of synergy he's developed here in the data community, and I'm assuming this will be the first of many such events in the future, and congratulations, Hudson, on the good work you've done. When the Recovery Act was passed in February of 2009, the board was constituted in that act, and we met 10 days or so later and went through the act and tried to figure out exactly what the mission of the board would be. It basically fell into two big buckets, and one was to provide some sort of an umbrella for prevention of fraud around what was at the time $787 billion and what ended up to be $840 billion, and I still to this day don't know how that happened, but it did, and it was $840 billion, and it was an jaw-dropping assignment to think about how we were going to protect that from fraud. The other big bucket was to bring, quoted in the act, an unprecedented level of transparency to government spending. So how do we do that? So there were some real challenges to both of those missions, and I'll go through a couple of them with you. It was sort of broke down into the who, what, and where kind of category, the who being, who would we collect this data from? We made a decision early on that we would take the chance to collect data directly from recipients. That was not a particularly popular decision. The decision was made between ourselves and OMB and the agencies. We really didn't know if it would work. Can recipient reporting